Hello gardening friends, welcome to Backyard Basics. Well, a lot of people have been interested in growing food in their yard. Lots of people all across the country. It's about quality, it's about availability right outside, it's about being there with the children, it's about staycation, staying at home and doing work in the yard. So I'd like to explain a little bit about one of the experiences I've had this last year, and that's with the square foot garden. If you're going to do a square foot garden, one of the things that you need to look for is a nice sunny spot in the yard. That's very important. One of the beauties of the square foot garden is if you have a limited size of the light, this is perfect for it. Or if you have a deck or a porch and that's all you have to garden in, that's perfect for it. So you can do this. One of the things you can also do is, if you can't bend over much anymore, or you're in a wheelchair, you can raise the bed up nicely and still get all the production that you would on the ground. It's got a little board underneath it, it supports the soil, and so, and we make these out of recycled wood. We went to a construction site and asked for some wood. This is 6 inches. You can make it 10, anything that you want. But Mel Bartholomews, the author of this whole thing, suggests a 6-inch one, and he says that's all you really need. And indeed, he does quite well with that type of a garden. What's also important, if it's going to be called a square foot garden, then it has to have a grid on it. Each one is a square foot. This is mandatory or you get lost and you got stuff growing all over the place and you lose the ability to plant 20% more vegetables in less space than you would in a row. So this increases your production in these sites. And there's an orderly way of planting. Some vegetables may be spaced about 4 apart. Heads of lettuce might go in something like this. So that's an important thing to keep. Here's one that has 9 spacings in it. Maybe it's beets or spinach would go into something like this. So that's another one. And then here's one, maybe radishes, beets once again, the smaller beets. I love beets. And so this is the way that you keep things in order and keep the production up. And Mel developed these particular things. When you're out there in the landscape, it would be nice to get rid of the grass. I think that's very important. But if you don't, make sure that you use a weed fabric. This will stop the grass from coming through. I think this is an essential piece of information. You don't want things growing up from underneath at all. So that's important also. And now, one of the more important things that Mel brings up is about the soil mix. I've tried different soil mixes thinking, well, I can do one too, and they did well. But the one that did the best really was Mel's mix. And so it consists of, in the blend right here, in thirds. It's 1/3 vermiculite, it's 1/3 peat moss, I like to use core fiber instead, and 1/3 compost. This is where the nutrients come from because he really doesn't feed it. And he does suggest, if you're buying compost in bags, that you get an assortment of compost for an array of nutrients and different types of organisms. So that's a good way to do this. And we've been successful with it. And especially when you have the raised beds, well, it's very light. You don't have a bunch of soil in it. Now, some other things that would help you increase the productivity out in that garden could be to use a trellis. And he makes them out of conduit. He's tried everything. He's tried bamboo, he's tried wood, and none of them have held up as nicely as the conduit. And so you put your little trellis on there, you can buy those things, and then you start planting next to it. Another great safe way to bring up vegetables and not have them go all over the place. Pretty soon I'll be planting some of those wonderful sugar snap peas that we grow in the winter months. And you know what? That's one of my favorite gardens. So if you're going to do this, you ought to get the book. Mel's book, and his all-new book, Square Foot Gardening, is essential. I've just shown you some highlights right here of how it's done, but the truth is, you got to read about it. You'll learn quite a bit from his book, and I think that that's the best way to go. So if you want a lot more vegetables in your garden this year, and done in an easy way, easier than you've ever done, try Square Foot Gardening. I'm Dromgoole. I'll see you next time.